Hello, Jeff. How are you, mate? You okay?
Yeah, mate, I'm good. You?
Yeah, I'm all right. You know, apart from we were just saying before we started the recording that I'm having a bit of trouble sleeping at the moment for no apparent reason. But you know, that's just
Yeah.
lockdown life for you, isn't it?
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Third time in a row now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think that's really interesting, isn't it? Because it's like, I don't think people realise just how similar the UK and the Dutch policies towards all of this have actually been.
Yeah. Well,
Not to get into
all the
politics straight
stories
off
and
the bat, you know.
all the yeah. Straight into politics.
Just straight in, no warning. Yeah,
Well,
fair enough. Yeah, it's crazy. So, how's things over there? You coping well?
yeah, I'm doing well. I making a lot of music lately. I happy with the releases so far, and I mean, it's cool to see even in these times that the support is there, and yeah, that motivates me. And
Hmm.
yeah, we're busy with some cool live streams as well, and making the label living again. And yeah, I mean, uh, that keeps going on, and that focused me to be here in the studio and yeah, go forward.
No, amazing. It's great because I think there's like certain artists who, in a weird way, like a pandemic kind of suits. I know that's a bit
Yeah.
of a strange thing to say because it doesn't really suit anybody, you know. It's such a weird choice of words first thing in the morning, but
Yeah.
but you know, it's the fact that your whole aesthetic is so visual, and I think really works well on live streams because like this is not to disparage anyone who's done live streams, and obviously all the big names have done them, but you know, I've found them probably less interesting than a lot of people because it's just like, here's somebody standing in front of decks in their house. You know,
Yeah.
whereas, you know, what you do, and also the way that the team around you and the way you guys all work together to present what Hollt is fantastic. I mean, you know, I've seen loads of footage from some of the live streams you've done, and it's really innovative, it's really visually engaging, and I think it's really entertaining. So hats off to you for that, mate.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah, and I mean, the thing with the live streams nowadays, I think, is that there's a lot, and we have to make sure that we stand above that, and that's hard. I mean, there's going a lot of time in that as well, and luckily I got a good friend of mine. He's a really good cameraman, Keon, and yeah, we're sitting down together quite often, and then just decide like, okay, maybe we can do this on that location, and maybe we can do something special with some lights, for example. And yeah, last year I ran into a company called Video Sync, and I met them via the guys of Ableton, and they recommend them and to the guys, and he told me like, you can just sync the whole Ableton with lights via MIDI. So I was yeah, I was interested in the fact that could happen. And so yeah, I dove into that, and that was the last stream I did at the on disabled loads.
Hmm.
And we got a bit of luck on that as well, because yeah, we got some contacts with the undisabled loads, and it's like a massive loads warehouse kind of thing.
Mm.
And some big festivals we're holding there, as Toffler Festival, and Stefan Botze, Maceo Plex were playing there. And I saw the footage. Keon, he sent it me over, and it was like, wow, if we could stand over there in that big warehouse with a lot of smoke and lights, then yeah, and we just made it happen. And we start building like 10 in the morning together with my dad and another friend of mine, Peter. and we were like with the four of us, and we're like, okay, we're going live in like 3, or we going filming it at 3 or 4. And then in the end, it was like 8 p.m. in the evening, and we still had to do the job, like the filming part. So it was super intense, and I was
Yeah.
like home at 1 or 2 in the night, and yeah.
Dude, I feel your pain. I feel your pain.
Yeah.
I mean, even on something like that, because I've worked on sets on like, you know, feature films and stuff. Like I've been like head of sound department on a feature film that was shot here about 5-6 years ago. And I don't think people really understand the level of pain that goes into making content like this. Because, like you just say, it's like, you know, you start at 10 o'clock in the morning and you're still there at 1 a.m. and you're like, how the hell has this happened? Like, you know, we used to get 5 a.m. call times on the set of the feature film. And sometimes wouldn't start filming till 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
You know, so we would have to build the set, dress it out, get everything right, get the wiring right, you know, that kind of thing. So the amount of preparation that goes into to then actually go and do the thing, and also so many more multiples, right?
I mean, it's sometimes it's insane, and that's also a thing Kian and I seems to do, is that we're fucking each other up, you know. I mean, it's like we can do this, and then he's like, no, maybe we can do this, and you know, it's and then we just have to look each other like, dude, just settle down, don't make it too crazy. Yeah. So and I mean, at the end of the month, we have an amazing live stream coming up as well, together with 03 and the guys from Beatport. And they saw the footage and they were like, dude, can you do something for us? I was like, wow, I'm just done with the On the Zeeboot load streaming. I'm a bit tired, but let's fucking do it.
No, but you've got it, man.
Yeah. So we arranged something cool now, and really looking forward to that as well. And especially if you do it more often, anyone, you know, knows what they're doing, and the talk's going easier, and it's good fun, especially during these times.
Oh, of course, man. I mean, it's weird in a way because it gives you the opportunity to do things that you probably wouldn't get the opportunity to do under like quote unquote like normal circumstances. So that's what I mean by like certain artists have really been able to lean into it because their concept kind of goes beyond DJing and it goes into something else. And you know, me and you have had this conversation before, even before the pandemic, when we first met a couple of years ago. Like, we were very much saying that, like, the future looks a way that I don't think a lot of people are quite onto yet. Where, you know, I genuinely believe, like, in 10 years from now, or 5 years from now even, the concept of playing other people's records one after the other is going to seem a little bit old-fashioned and a little bit like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
You know, because it is evolving. It already has. I mean, you've only got to look at, obviously, the well-known examples like Kink. You know, you've got incredible live acts now doing like live improvised jams. One of the best shows I've been to in recent years was Richie Houghton doing Closer at the Roundhouse in London, which was just insane to think that he literally just did the whole thing on the fly.
Yeah.
So, you know, we are entering into this hybrid future, and that's what I mean by, like, the pandemic kind of gives you an opportunity to show that visually and aesthetically in a way that might not have happened otherwise. You might not have had access to certain locations or that kind of thing, but it's a phenomenal thing.
Yeah.
Man.
And of course, the you know, the places where we can do stuff, there's nothing happening over there right now, so we can make use of that as well. And they're quite happy also that we are approaching them, and sometimes you have to pay a little bit of money to them, but they're, you know, they're so kind and open to do some stuff, especially when it's a little bit more unique than only a DJ set and 2 lights in the back. And I think what you said about like the future concept, I think during the COVID pandemic, you already saw a peak of it, because people gotta think, and people are, or DJs and producers, they're staying home, and normally they're going out, and I think they all see the potential with the technology, the syncing, for example. And last time I saw Agents of Time and Fidelis are doing this amazing live stream somewhere on a location, and it was all in sync again with some visuals in the background and some lights in the middle of the setting. And I mean, they just sold the whole thing online with a live stream. And that's also a thing. I don't think that will that will stay. And of course people want to go out again and meet the guys and see it again, but people paying for seeing that online, and if they will pay for it online, you could imagine what it will do if it's live, if you're there. So
No, totally.
that's cool.
No, it's really, really cool. And
Yeah.
I always thought that, like, from back when we first met a few years ago, like, immediately as soon as I saw the whole thing, I think it was ADE a couple of years ago.
Yeah. No,
It
I
was
think
a-
it was Dance Fair for the
It was
first
Dance
time.
Fair. That's right. Yeah, it was Dance Fair that year. Yeah, because I was doing all the hosting that year at Dance Fair. I was being the techno Jerry Springer that weekend. Because it was so funny, because the room was actually done like a, it was the amphitheater type thing with the rows of seats that went up, and I literally was like walking in between the seats. I'm like, I feel like fucking Oprah here, like. Oprah for kick drums, do you know what I'm saying?
Giving away all the presets and the presents.
Well, exactly, yeah, exactly. Trying to stop a gabba producer and a techno producer from hitting each other and stuff,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Yeah, it's crazy, but yeah, as soon as I saw the concept, it was fantastic, and it was something that I vividly remember thinking to myself, there's the future right there, in whatever form people want to take it. Because we're evolving these hybrids now, and this has been on the cards for a number of years. Since you've had the likes of Push come out, the Akai stuff, like your APC range, that kind of thing, Machine, that kind of element, where there was this kind of like hybrid happening between a physical interaction, like a physical interface, a piece of hardware, and software at the same time. So once that bridge was like reliably built, what you do and what a few other artists we can mention do, it's kind of almost like the logical conclusion to that, where it was going to be taken out onto the stage at some stage, and it was going to go beyond what it looked like back in the day when people first started doing it, which was it looked like somebody was checking their emails live on stage. It wasn't very interesting sort of aesthetically. So I think it'd be interesting to kind of talk about your journey for a second, because obviously you're sort of a new artist that's kind of like blossoming in the scene at the moment, but you've come with this very, very different concept. So it's like, well, where did you start? Where did the whole concept of it begin, and how did we end up here, basically, for those of you who may not have who might be listening who may not know who you are?
Yeah, well, I've done a study on the conservatory in Haarlem, and it's called e-musician, so electronic musician, and I've done that for 4 years, and especially the last year we had to make our own kind of end project, and it has to compete to, or it has to fulfill some needs of the school itself, like some approach. You have to write it down. It's still like a school, but I came to the idea that it maybe was cool to do, or to present, like 12 tracks on a night, and then there was like a jury, or people who were gonna give me a grade, and then you're passed the test, and then you have your paper. But I wanted to do something special, not only like present like 8 or 12 tracks like an album, for example, but I wanted to do something special with it. And back then I went to some live artists, like King, Stefan Botzin, and I was impressed. I was like, those guys are coming to a certain level where other DJs who just playing records or records from themselves, they're not coming to that aesthetic level. And I saw that, and I saw the crowd reacting, and I thought, well, maybe it's cool to do something live. And yeah, I was producing for 3-4 years in Ableton back then, and I thought, well, maybe I will want to give it a shot. So in my second semester, I was playing in front of some teachers, and I had to do the exam of live performance. It was just like a test before the big part later on in my last year. And out of nowhere, there were like first years coming into the room, like 30 of them, and my teachers they told me like, well, you now got an audience, good luck. And I wasn't that prepared as that I thought. I rehearsed, of course, at home to do a live show I had to do 15 or 20 minutes. And I went on stage, I wired everything up, and I mean, I totally fucked it up. It was, and then in front of, the first years, you want to show that you're a fourth year, like the last year, and you want to show them a good example, but no, it went off. And then I thought to myself, like, okay, I don't want this anymore, not that kind of failure. And I mean, if you play live, there's highly more chance to, do it wrong or to do something stupid, or I mean, you have to cope with a lot of things at the same time. It's not like playing a song from A to B and then from B to C and etc. So I thought, well, maybe I need something that it's easier to carry on if I want to play live with, for example, a flight case with all the stuff in it, or I don't know. I wanted to do something else than just wiring up everything and then not having all the power issues, or it can be a cable soup, Yeah, and from that on, I was sitting down thinking of like, okay, maybe I want to build a box or something. So it all started with a problem, and I think that's a thing people always maybe underestimate. Like, oh, that's a problem. I don't want that again, so I run away from it. But what I did back then is then just say to myself, okay, I don't want this to happen again. Let's fix it, or let's build something around it to solve the problem. And in the end, I built the Holltesizer. So it's just a box with some existing MIDI devices, and with some LED strips in it as well to make it a bit fancy. And then just 2 cables out, and there's a power socket in it as well, and a USB hub in that. But I don't touch it anymore because it's in one box.
Mm-hmm.
And the cool thing about that is that if I want to play live on stage or want to do a live stream, for example, I'm done in 5 or 10 minutes.
Nice.
It's as simple as playing with Traktor on your laptop and hooking up one of your controllers. And that's one thing I really wanted to, speed the process. Don't have to worry about power issues and stuff. And that for me did the job. And especially what I also saw with the other live artists was that they're looking into their laptops while playing live. And that's logic, because normally you have a CDJ from Pioneer where you can watch the display, and then it's easier to make eye contact with your crowd again. But if you're playing live, you want to keep control, and then you're looking into the laptop and stuff. So I thought maybe I want to solve that as well. So another friend of mine, he is quite a nerd. and so technical, and he made a display for me where I can see on which track I'm on and which scene. And on the scene part of Ableton, I just giving myself some tips like, oh, after this you have to play A minor on, or E minor on synth 1, for example, or after this there's a drop. And so yeah, that was the Holltesizer. And from that part, I thought, okay, if this is possible, if I can make this, then maybe I can hook up some other devices, for example the lights and the visuals, and that really opens up my mind for the creative part of performing. And I mean, there's so much I still don't know, but there's so much possible on that front, with the whole concept. And you can name everything, like, for example, a smoke machine. For example, if you bring your own smoke machine, I've never done it, but if you bring your own freaking smoke machine to a live show, you can just hook it up via DMX to MIDI to USB. It can talk with each other, and that's so powerful. So if you can hook up a smoke machine, you can hook up everything. That's
the coffee maker.
Insane. Yeah, for example, like every quarter or something of your set, like after every 50 minutes, you have a fresh cup of coffee, or tea.
Yeah, you need them for the late sets, dude. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Seriously, keep going. No, it's you're totally right. I mean, it's incredible that you can have that amount of interactivity, and now it's like, I think about how far we've come in the last decade, and I say that because back in like 2011, I did a lot of mentoring in Ibiza with Richie Horton, and it was a fantastic thing. It was called Burn Studios, but he was currently touring the Plastic Man Live show that he did about them with the cage, the 180 cage that was surrounding him, and he could control what would happen on the screen and stuff like that. And he did a session with all of these guys at this like production retreat back in like 2011, and it was amazing because like there was just like 350 tracks in his Ableton session, and
insane.
And I mean, a lot of it was to do with, because of the fact that it was in the days, really the early days of like Max MSP and Max for Live and stuff like that. So a lot of it was to do with converting the MIDI to DMX in order to get certain things to happen. And it's now, you think about it now, it's probably been all condensed down to a couple of Max for Live plugins and some USB cables and stuff. And away you go. Like we've successfully kind of streamlined and minimized the effort of setting something like that up, which obviously does open out other new possibilities.
Yeah. Well, back then, I mean, of course, he was one of the first who tried out, and especially with Max, it can be very not complicated, but you know that if you don't have a certain cable in your studio and you're plugging it from, okay, this is an XLR, and then going to a jack and then to a mini jack, and then and that was back then. I mean, that was the same. It was literally making or thinking about something like, okay, I want to hook up an DMX channel to my USB. Then you have to program it yourself. And now there are amazing programs or a piece of hardwares with just like under $100 you can buy, and then there's just a USB input and a DMX output. And we are still thinking of making a second Holltesizer and then just building in that piece of hardware, and it's not more than the size of your iPhone. It's incredible. And imagine that you're coming towards a festival or something, and there's a whole lights and LED wall behind you, and just plugging in the device and you're done. I mean, I think artists will deal with that or want to deal with that more in the future than they want now, especially if because they're musicians, they're not like technical guys, and they maybe don't have any knowledge of lights and visuals, of course, because their job is making music. But I think it will be, or my interest still is like the full package, and I think, well, we got a lot of great conversations about that, but I think it's becoming about the full package, and it's so interesting to see because you can also, I mean, Max Cooper, for example, you also see his art not only like through the speakers but also behind him, and that makes the artist so much more interesting to see. And yeah, it's not only it's you see more from the person behind, and I think that's so amazing to see and so more open to to see that. And I think that's so cool I think that there will be way more people going to achieve that as well.
No, definitely. I think it's again, like, the technology is becoming more and more available, and you can do more and more with that technology.
Yeah.
And we kind of, it's interesting because like we're almost approaching the same thing from slightly different angles, because you're talking about controlling lights and visuals and stuff, and Max has been doing that just phenomenally well for a number of years. But having actually performed with Max, like I opened for him in like 2016 in Belfast in Ireland, it's an effort, man, because it's like it's 2 laptops. You have to be across both laptops at the same time, both audibly, audio and visually as well. And he was playing a lot of those shows in surround sound as well, and that's really where that's my point of interest, is like immersive audio. And it's incredible, like, to hear you talk about like you're up and running within like 3 to 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. We were doing the exact same thing, and we've been really focused on that with the work that I do with D&B Audio with their soundscape systems. The whole thing I said to them was, this has to be easy, because if it's not easy to control or easy to set up, no one's going to use it. Or the people who are going to use it are going to be far more like niche, nerdy, that kind of thing. If you want more mainstream adoption for this, if you want this to become the industry standard, you have to be up and running in like no time at all. And what we've actually found is, we can actually get, if you're performing live on Ableton, for example, the way you do, and you wanted to kind of bring that into a soundscape situation, we've now got it down to 1 Ethernet cable and about 3 minutes worth of setup.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, you just have to simplify it, right? If you want to bring it to the bigger audience, and of course there will be nerds at first, but especially if you're building equipment. I mean, I got a lot of questions if I want to build the Holltesizer or sell it and stuff. Well, maybe some days. But I mean, it all starts with a sort of with a problem, or like, okay, we have to simplify this, or okay, if we want to do more shows at one day, or I don't know, a touring kind of thing, you don't want to stress out a lot about all the stuff you bring on. And the example you took with Max having the 2 laptops, I think there will be a time, especially of the power, it's getting more stronger with the new Apple stuff or other Windows stuff, I don't know, where it will be maybe a small chip, or for example, or the possibilities later on are very interesting to see where it's heading to. And I see also Stefan Botzin with a second laptop, and he has some software on there as well called Resolume, and it's for visuals.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and he syncs with that as well. And but I came across that video sync software where you don't have to use another laptop because it won't take the CPU of your Ableton project.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just say to your laptop, okay, if you have like 16 gigabytes of RAM, then 8 of it goes to Ableton and the other half goes to the video software. And if you have like a special codec, then it will run like super smooth. And I tested it like a month ago, and it's insane. It's stable. It's there. I still have to test it, and maybe someday in a live stream or maybe later on in a show. But there are possibilities, and that's awesome to see the grow. Where it's heading to, especially with all the technical stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. And it's got so much room to grow because, the immersive audio thing like hasn't really been done properly as far as I'm concerned, and it's not really been done like right. There was that whole sort of 8D audio bullshit that happened last year. And it was like some of the worst record. It was basically somebody got a binaural plug-in and went, swing! Let's put lots of reverb on everything, and it was just like, what is this, and why are people even?
Since then, I put all my songs out of phase. I just turn it, and to labels, and they were like, "Whoa, dude!"
It sounds so wide, so immersive.
You're so AD, man.
No,
you're so AD.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, tell me about it. I've got bad enough time in 3 dimensions. Never mind 8. But again, like to sort of move on from that, like there's so many more possibilities now around expanding even into things like VR, for example, and AR and that kind of thing. And I think there's going to be some really interesting things that I'm definitely wanting to get and be involved in. This is bringing all of these kind of seemingly quite separate things together and creating like really deeply immersive experiences for people that are like kind of transformative. Like we've all had that moment on the dance floor, right, where it's like I feel like my life's changing because of how good the whole thing was. And I think we've had the same kind of technology for so long now that it's time for it to kind of evolve and offer people like a deeper connection than what they've had before, basically.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole point. I mean, you want to. I think at a certain point, it's not only about the audio anymore. It's people want to see and experience and feel it, and that's really interesting. And about the whole VR stuff, I saw some stuff from, I thought it was Armin van Buren, and he was like in a sort of 3D kind of space, and you could walk into the room, and it's insane. And I think you have seen also the whole Tomorrowland footage. It's intense what they did with all the 3D mapping and the big green screen stuff. It's cool to see the people now hooking up with each other. And hopefully they stay connected and to do some more cool things in the future on the live platform, not like online, but then in real life. Maybe they can do something cool with that as well, and then combine forces and come up with some cool ideas.
Oh, totally, yeah. And there's so much innovation going on at the minute because, like, in the situation that we currently find ourselves in, like, innovation becomes really necessary to try and, like, obviously, keep the lights on, so to speak. But you're gonna have a very mixed future. I think once you kind of realize how far we've come in the last year, and you really think about it, and you hear about these innovations, you realize like there's no going back to how it was before.
No.
It's going to be a much more kind of interesting, varied kind of future, really, where you'll be able to attend something like Tomorrowland, both physically and virtually. And it's just about how you choose to interact, whether you have an audio festival pass so you can hear all the sets streamed live, or you do a thing over video, or you even have like a VR kind of like festival ticket where you basically stay home, but you are in effect in a VR sense in the festival. So there's just so much as I say, so much innovation going on, and I think if we drop everything and then go back to how things were previously, I think we're missing a huge opportunity to really take things to the next level. But I think there's enough people involved to make sure that that's not going to be the case. Because I think some of the things that are about to happen, like some of the, as I say, some of the innovations that I've been involved with around immersive audio and some of the things going on with everything we've just been talking about, I think is going to change the game. And I think it's going to result in people having different aspirations, ambitions, and also I think crowds will start to expect more from their performers.
Also, I mean, I hope, because I literally can't wait to see more of that, like live and in real. And I've known that 2 years or 3 years ago I went to the digital festival in Barcelona, and they're so upfront with art and with interactive art. So if you walk under like a sort of, what is it? It was a sort of LED light sort of tunnel, and you walked under that, and then the lights, every time one person walks in it, would go with you and change the colors. And only that part, people were like, "Oh my god!" It was just a tunnel with some lights, but it did the job, And if you know that is possible, then there's so much more. And I can't wait to experiment with that, and I can't wait to see what other festivals, promoters, DJs, artists are coming up with. And there's a lot of possibilities.
No, totally.
Yeah.
It's great because we're now going from, and this is a nice little convenient segue to talk about our course. It's like, we've now gone from, as I like to say, from the studio to the booth, as in the DJ booth. We've now gone from that to from the studio to the stage. And that's really interesting. And I've been seeing this shift happen for a number of years where, I've done live production management and engineering for gigs like here in Liverpool. And I did one a few years ago in there's a famous venue here called, or a famous building here called the Bombed Out Church, where basically there was a German bomb hit it in World War II, and the roof fell in, but it never exploded. So what you've got is like a perfect building, church with no roof. So we used to do outdoor parties in there. And one of these parties was Henry Size with a full live band.
Oh, wow.
Paco Osuna with his whole setup, and John Digweed. And I had to build 3 different DJ booths because they all needed, and the warm-up guy needed something different. So we had to build 3 different DJ booths. So this big long booth, and basically the DJs would go from left to right across the stage.
Yeah.
And then we had to sweep all of that away and set Henry's live band up with a live drummer on 30 minutes notice. And that really struck me because back in the day, I'd go to clubs and it'd be like, there's two Technics and Alan and Heath, get on with it.
Yeah.
And it's that evolution of, right, well, we're now starting to get really specific on how people want to DJ, what mixes they want, what decks they want. There's more choice than ever. Then we get into controllers and live, and now we're at a point where we're at the same point as, say, somewhere like Glastonbury, where it's like each individual act has its own rider, has its own requirements, and it's all completely unique. So, we're entering into that kind of area now where it's going to be very artist driven. I mean, my opinion is the next 5 years is going to be about, once things start to open up, the artists who have really got something to say and can say it with technology are going to be the ones that are going to thrive.
Yeah. I share that whole thing, and I'm just looking forward to to what's happening, and it's so interesting. And I think that people who are playing live, they're already like a kind of nerd.
Yeah.
So I think I will bring it more calmly, or they're quite a nerd. And I think they will be the first, who want to try out new stuff and experiment with that, and of course the festivals. And I hope that there will be a more like a kind of integration with maybe DJ sets on that level as well. And I think that Pioneer or other DJs, or other companies, manufacturers are going to come up with that as well. Maybe there will be like a tractor sync with some visual program, or maybe they will integrate it themselves. It's there's so much more, and of course there are some boundaries. I mean, a DJ from across the street who wants to play a record song at his home don't want a whole like DJ visual light program. Well, maybe only for his coffee machine then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, the espresso comes at the drop, right?
long build-ups.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah.
need my coffee.
Oh God, I'm such a fucking nerd. I'm so sorry. Oh, so good. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, there'll be different kind of things for different setups, and I think, like, for me, I think DJing will become the gateway to the next thing, which is what we're talking about now. And as I said, like, we mentioned like the course before, like that was kind of the idea that we'd come up with, right? Which was, we need to be able to reflect this new reality in a really interesting way that shows people how you get from the initial blank Ableton session all the way through to being able to stand up on stage and actually perform the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's great. So I have to Skype delays.
Lovely, right? Lovely. Yeah, I mean, you asked me back then to make a course, and we had a small funny chat about what can we do, and we also did a bit of research online, and we came to the point that there's not much out there that really explains the story from A to Z to the end. And the fun part about making the course for MYT was that I never really thought about the process. I mean, there's so much happening in your head as a producer, as an artist, as a live musician maker, and so I was busy with it. I did the course, and I thought, oh wow, I never like wrote down the process. So for me, that was really cool to do and to experience. Yeah.
I mean, I put you through hell, mate. I really did.
Yeah, well, but I mean, also going through hell, you learn a lot. I've learned so much and about the process, or about my process, and it's cool to share that with all of you.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing, that, isn't it? Because like I find that myself, that when I teach, it often results in me learning more. Yeah. And in a weird way, I sometimes feel like I'm not really teaching anybody. I'm just kind of teaching myself. It's just other people seem to be watching at the time, or other people seem to be benefiting. But, I almost feel like a kind of an imposter at times. Like I've said this like on the platform on a number of occasions during the live call. Like we're doing this new workflow system course called the Flow System, which is going into like, all the cognitive neuroscience and stuff like that. It's really interesting. And I basically, I said to them on a live call last night that I believe the person who's benefited most from this course so far is probably me. Like, which sounds awful for a teacher to say, but it's actually true. That, you reflect on your own process so much and you realise, oh, that's where I could improve. Like, that's really good. That could go with that kind of thing. Did you find that as well? Yeah.
But that's the whole thing about, making music, producing for yourself. It's always easier, in my opinion, to produce for someone else. Or to make music together with someone, and then you give the product on the end of the day to that person, or it's easier. And if you think about all the stuff, what happens in your head, and you would write it down. I mean, there's I think you won't stop writing. There's so many things happening, like decisions, why, all those questions in your head, what's going on, and it's cool to sometimes reflect on that. And that's also one of the reasons why a lot of artists around me now are starting, doing those YouTube videos, or are going to a school to give some lessons. And I sometimes gave a masterclass. I did some with Ableton, and I went to some cities with them to talk about the Holltesizer and Ableton Live, and I got so motivated afterwards. I got so much energy from people, but also about my own story. And I mean, it's not that I wake up every day and tell myself my own story, it's but the thing is that I'm proud of what I did, but I'm not like, it's I don't have a wall or a poster here with all the text like be proud of yourself. But it's sometimes
I hate those people. It's like I go into someone's house and I see like live, laugh, love, and I just want to walk out. I'm just like, oh, fuck you. Anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, it's cool to see people now teaching, and those people are just, yeah, they're teaching also because they're teaching themselves, and it's cool. Yeah.
I totally agree with you on
cool.
on the thing of like writing music for other people, because I did that for a number of years. And it's not something I do now, because I've got the platform and I've got an ability to help people in a much deeper and a much more interesting way. But it's so true. Like somebody can come into your studio, they sit down, they say, "I want a track to sound like this," and then that's it.
Yeah,
you kind of go and make it, and then that's it, and you'll have a good time doing it because who doesn't enjoy the process of making music, right? But
yeah,
it is very much you're furnishing somebody else's creative vision, which can be rewarding in its own way, but there's nothing like being able to say what you've got to say and it sounds exactly the way, or even better than what it sounded like when it was in your head, basically. And that's why I kind of took a step away from it, because I said this, I spent so many years engineering for people that I was one of those lizards that can change their colour to match the environment. Like, I was one of those, but I'd forgotten what my natural colour was.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of step away and figure out who I was as an artist, and I'm still on that journey now. Yeah. And again, I'm kind of, excuse the pun, but I'm still making my transition. Hey, well, you've got it
drum
in the course. Come on, I've very nearly put a drum roll underneath the video.
Oh man, I just learned a new word. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm still kind of undergoing that transition to be like, as you know, I'm very interested in like film music and live performance and more, ambient. You mentioned Max Cooper before, like that's my jam. And it has been for a number of years. And the likes of yourself and John Hopkins and a load of other people are really inspiring me in that point, because I still want to express myself on stage, but I've got to use these tools that are in front of me. So in a selfish way, I've got to say it, like, I think the first person to do the course will be me.
Yeah.
Because I kind of went through the videos and I'm like, checking them all, editing them all, and I'm like, Jesus, this is the course I needed, like, in order to do this, you know. So it's so amazing, and obviously, like, you know, it's a course for MYT, so of course we're going to be positive about it. Like, let's not get it twisted. Yeah. But just like the way that it's been filmed is fantastic, because the way that you did it with the multiple camera angles, you just get a whole perspective on everything in terms of like how you do what you do, and it's so well covered, it's so exhaustive, and you know, it contains answers to questions that I've always wanted to ask you, you know, in terms of how that happens. So, you know, as you mentioned as well, there's not really a lot of resources like that out there, which is one of the reasons why we did this, was that it was something that we saw a lot of people were asking about, like, oh god, how do you get to like Stefan Bodzin or Kink or that kind of thing. And you know, it was great to have an opportunity to be able to kind of answer that question fundamentally, and be able to sort of show people, especially with someone like yourself who is just so, you know, on the upward swing as well of their career, who makes incredible music first and foremost, but has an incredible way of you know, presenting it as well. So, you know, to be able to get a product out that will allow people to kind of figure out their own way of doing it, I think it's going to be incredibly powerful, dude. So, you know, we've got a lot to thank you for.
Yeah, well, thank you, mate. I mean, it was a lot of fun to wave to hell, but also no, joking. No. I mean, especially, you know, I mean, you know me, and I don't want to do stuff like 90%, especially with the setup and the cameras, and I, of course, got some lighting over here to make it a bit more cozy and stuff. And I had an idea in mind about the approach, and I literally think that you could watch to the course and also make your own direction.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I mean, I'm telling it like very, you know, wide. It's a wide spectrum I approach, but I'm going to a certain direction, but still keep it that wide and open for, you know, other ideas. And I think that's one thing I also learned from hanging out with some peers at school and from teachers, is that they're trying to give you a push, and then you have to dive in it yourself, or, you know, and that's the most interesting part about learning. And I want to open some eyes who are watching the course, and that they're like, oh wait, okay, well, if this is possible, then I will do this, or just follow my path. But there are so many options, and I wanted to explain all the options there is available. And I mean, how much hours are the course? Like 5 or 6?
Yeah,
but we could
make
it
hours,
like
ridiculous.
make 12 or like a week.
Yeah, I mean, you could literally you could do like an entire 3-year program on, you know, all the different things. You could make a degree course out of it. You really could. You know, I know, because that's what I used to do for a living before I did this. You know, and it is just so crazy now, and with the depth and the breadth of options and variations. But, you know, you make a very good point about teachers as well. And, you know, what I love about what you've done on the course, it's just so in alignment with how we try and help people at MYT, which is to try and give people, like, I call it like it's like a loose but supportive framework. It's flexible, basically. Yeah. So you can flow within the framework, essentially. So you can basically have like a structure that supports you, like a workflow that supports you. But at the same time, what it does is that it flows with you, and it's not too rigid. It's not too, like, you know, you have to do this at this point and then that's it. You know, it's about, again, having like a kind of a loose, flexible, but, as I say, supportive structure to sort of help you find who you actually are as an artist. Because, again, like, a lot of people, like, they'll teach it in this very kind of, like, you know, strict kind of way, and everybody ends up sounding the same because you've not been taught to be yourself. You've been taught to sound like the person teaching you. So yeah,
and I think that there are so many possibilities, of course, to make music and to perform with it. And I mean, that's I had a great conversation. I think it was 2 years ago at the Marktkantine. I had to play live there with the Holltesizer, and a guy came to me, and he was before the show went on, and he told me like, dude, are you selling the Holltesizer? And I'm like, well, not at this point. But and then he told me like, could you make it for me, or could I, if I buy it from you, for example, can I do the same thing as you do, you know? And then I thought like, okay, well, this is interesting because no, you can't. It's my project. But seriously, it's my. It's not that. It's not that it's complicated, or for example, but it's my way of performing, and it's my way of doing stuff. And
do you know what the equivalent of that would be? Somebody walking up to Jimi Hendrix at Woodstock and saying, "If I buy that Fender guitar from you,
well,
will I be able to play guitar like Jimmy?"
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not how the game works, my friend.
Yeah. And that's so funny because the thing is, you have to dive in yourself. You have to experiment with a lot of stuff, and that's the only thing to, you know, to become a good live performer, I think. And I'm still not there. I mean, I have so much more to learn, and especially on the Max for Live stuff, I'm quite not that busy with it. But I mean, it's so much interesting what's all capable with those plugins, and you know, I mean, I think that you just if you dive into it, and if you have some research or the course, for example, to guide you a bit in that big mess of Ableton, which is, you know, a quite complicated program if you want to achieve some stuff you want to do live, then I think just dive into it, and then just wiggle the knobs and see what's coming out, you know. Yeah, that's it.
No, it's true, man. It's true, and it's important to note that. I mean, again, another great point you've just made there is like, no course or no like selling you a thing is going to get you there on its own. You know, it's designed to get you to the start line.
Yeah.
Like after you finish the course, like that's when the work really begins, right?
Yeah.
Because you've undergone this kind of learning journey, and now it's like, well, how do I implement that? How do I make that real, so to speak? And that's obviously down to the individual and how they kind of, you know, express that. Because, like, you know, in the development of, you know, sort of my own ideas around live performance, I'm going down completely different routes to you, you know, and that's absolutely fine, you know. That's absolutely the way it should be. So, you know, it's again, like, we end up back at that place where you've got 6 acts on during a party, and they have 6 completely different setups, but they all absolutely, you know, smash it no matter what. And that's very much the future we're heading towards. Is that very we're almost turning into rock music in a weird way.
Yeah.
If you think about it, like, you know, we're going from playing other people's records to, like, you know, actual performances, like. So it's very, very cool. It's just funny though, like, thinking about that guy who wanted to buy the Holltesizer from you. It's like, it makes you think, doesn't it, about, like, you know, why do we feel the need to have to kind of reduce everything to being like a commodity? Do you know what I mean? Like, are you building these things? Are you, like, you know, going to sell these on the mass market? Or if I buy that from you, you know, it's just such a weird way of looking at things, and it kind of devalues everything.
It's of course also the easiest way on first sight, you know. If you think like, oh, I want it to sound like this guy, then I need to buy all the stuff he has, and I mean, of course, I just told you about all the equipment I'm going to buy soon. But I think especially with live, and I mean the Holltesizer, it's just a MIDI device. So I mean the whole thing about the concept is that I put away my laptop so that it's not, I think personally the laptop, it's not that a pretty interface on stage. And I made the Holltesizer a bit more attractive with all the LEDs and stuff. So I thought, well, maybe I need to get rid of this, and we did it with the display. But the thing is that it's just a MIDI device. It sends his signals to the laptop, and that's it. But I got a lot of other devices here as well: the machine, the Innovation launch control, the launch pad. Those are all devices which can do the same as the Holltesizer. But it looks cool, and that's one of the reasons I think.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to buy it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what it comes down to,
The next time, if I'm seeing you, I will just sell my lounge pad with a LED strip around it.
Brilliant, and then I'll sound exactly like you.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I'll see you on stage at the Marktkantine, yeah. But yeah, it's just such a weird thing, like it really is. So I mean, from the perspective of like music production, because I do want to get into it with you in terms of like what your process is, and of course we can talk about the new synths you're going to add to the setup, and hopefully your bank won't hear this and won't be calling you to stop the order. Mr. Hollt, what are you doing?
Well. No, I 2 weeks ago I was at I think 2 weeks ago I was at Tom Zeta, his studio, and in Utrecht, and we were building a track, and he got some amazing analog gear. And that guy, he just wanted to sell me his stuff. No, man. I own the Sub 37, and I got the TR8, and I got them now for a while in the studio. And it's not that I'm done with the devices, but I think like, and I had the conversation with Tom, and he was like, well, maybe some other analog gear will, trigger you to some new inspirations, and of course, then you still have to work and press the knobs and the buttons. It's not that it's like the analog gear is like a magic machine or something, but in the studio with Tom, it really opens up my eyes and my ears. It was like, wow, the sounds are impressive, and so on my list are the Matrix Brute from Arturia and the Prophet 6, and I mean, yeah, it's those machines, man. I mean, they're insane, and so they're becoming my family in the next week or so. So I'm really excited. To implement them in my tracks.
Nice.
And I literally can't wait, man. I literally can't wait.
Yeah, I've had a little bit of a play with the Matrix Brute myself, and it's amazing because it's like it's really simple, but it's also really deep. How they've got the grid for the modulations and stuff, and it's very, very good, very, very good indeed. I mean, for me, I think to get the sound that I want from it. And I've had Hollywood film score composers say the same thing. Said the filters maybe are just a little bit, if you know what I mean, they're a little bit like polite.
Yeah.
They're not quite like that aggressiveness of like a Moog filter, that kind of thing. So you might find that there's a little bit of like post processing that you have to do. But they're if you want it really aggressive, but they're fantastic. They really are, and for the price, they are incredible.
Yeah, and especially the pads with the normally you have to wire up, with the cables to, go from the LFO to the cutoff, for example. and they made it possible to. I mean, they're smart guys, yeah, from Materia. I mean, they're so smart, and they just made a like the pad thing. Like, I mean, they're like 64 buttons by 64 buttons, and then you just wire them via buttons, and that's so cool because then you got the presets to sell and the presets to implement in the machine, because otherwise you have to sell those. Well, I have them over here. I got the Arturia Microbrute also. I got those.
Oh, like the overlays, yeah.
The overlays.
Well,
and you can buy them
brilliant
online, and then you know at first I thought, okay, let's buy some presets and let's see what it does, and then your order is on its way. I was like, okay, checking my email, nothing, and like, huh? And 2 days later on the mail, those guys came. It's like, wow, this is.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so funny. It's how we used to do it.
Yeah.
So it's actually one of the things I really liked about modular gear. Like in the time that I've had like working in studios with them, is like they're a complete moment in time.
Yeah.
And you will never, ever, ever get that moment back. So you'd best be recording when that moment happens. Because even if you, and I've had this on a couple of occasions, even if you completely take photographs or write things down or draw diagrams and that, you come back the next day and it sounds nothing like the thing. You know, and it's like, it can be something stupid, like, you know, the temperature in the room's like 2 degrees different, you know, or there's just something very strange about it. Like, so, I mean, I really do like that.
That's also one thing I like, is that I tend to always, no, not always, but you know, I'm going too fast sometimes to the project itself instead of jamming, and those hardware gear forces me to jam again and to, you know, make those long 20 minutes jams, and then just open the TR8 and, you know, have a pattern or something to play on, and just wiggle the all the knobs on a controller and play with it. And I also bought the Behringer Model D and the Neutron. For the price, they're really affordable, and but they also don't have the preset capability to save, you know. And then there was a point like, oh, do I need to buy this? Because I'm a big fan of presets. I'm a really big fan of presets, and then change the bits. And I thought, no, let's do it, and you know, let's face the whole make the init your own, you know. And I think that will forces me to, you know, jam more and record longer sessions, and in the end have more fun. And that's the biggest thing why I wanted to do it. Of course, that the sound is amazing. I mean, Tom really sold it to me. But you know, it's to have fun and to play around and to do the job in the end. Yeah.
No, totally. And it's so easy to kind of get stuck in a rut, isn't it? Of like, especially if you're in a situation where there's a lot of presets and you're mostly using plugins, like I am. Like, I have to work quite hard to kind of stop myself from kind of just getting into like an autopilot of just doing the same thing over and over again. And, you know, a bit of hardware, like, again, like the Matrix Boot is on the list for me this year as well. To have as a piece of hardware, because I'm literally completely in the box due to like how often I was traveling up until the pandemic.
Yeah.
So a lot of the synths that I've had in the past would just sort of sit there kind of gathering dust, and it was a bit of a shame. Because I was making music mostly on the move back then, or in other people's studios. So, you know, for me, it's about breaking out of that kind of autopilot, having hardware like that, because it's so completely unpredictable, and you know, you need a bit of time to be able to really sort of explore it, and in that point, it just opens out into becoming, you know, a completely different set of possibilities. And I suppose for you as well, being like a live performer, it would be a bit weird to kind of like be a live performer and then the way you make your track is that you just sit there and do the whole thing with the keyboard and the mouse and absolutely no physical input whatsoever, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I also hear a lot of stories about guys who, for example, you're a lot of on the road back then, and having all those analog gear for maybe 5 or 10 years, and then say to themselves like, okay, fuck all this, I'm going back to the laptop. But I'm not on that point yet. I just want to buy the stuff first, try it out, see how it works for me, and but I think it's so cool to speak to other people and they say like, I'm just coming from the whole analog world. No man, I'm just selling everything or just keeping everything or what you're doing, and then going into the box again and just work on the laptop itself. And but I mean, you have to first have the analog gear before you say that, because the grass is always greener on the other side, right? And I mean, if you can balance between them, I think that's my my goal. There are times I'm not even touching anything around here in the studio, and then just going forward within the project with some plugins. And then sometimes I just want to jam.
Yeah, I mean, it's best to have that kind of hybrid approach. And, don't get me wrong, I've got some very interesting controllers that allow me to do that within the plugin domain. And you raise another interesting point, which is, for me, personally, in terms of sound, like, I don't think one or the other is necessarily better. Now, I think the difference now between plugins and the actual hardware synths are just so small now that I think that the argument's kind of not really relevant anymore about which one's better, because they're both incredibly good. And it's about how you find your sound, and whether that's a plugin or whether it's a piece of hardware, then it's good either way, For me, I think it primarily comes down to the physical interaction and that headspace that you can get into, like you were saying, around jamming. Like, if that's something that's going to help you to find the right sound for you, then that's what you need to do. If it's building, like, I mean, my sort of workflow is slightly different in that I love to just sit there with, like, blank, say, for example, like diva patches or blank Silent or completely empty reactor racks, and just iterate and build from there. And that can actually, in combination with a good physical controller like a Push, for example, or, the Complete Control, like, you can get, it's not the same, but it's a very similar feeling of, right, I'm actually building this sound from nothing. So it's all about how you kind of set yourself up as well, really. So, again, like, as I say, the whole conversation of analog and digital or plugins and hardware, I think, is just a bit redundant now. I think it's just down to how you need to work.
Yeah, man. And I mean, that's the whole thing about, for me, what you said about the jamming and the fun, and what I did over here in the studio. I wanted to have my hands on the knobs and not always doing stuff with the mouse. So I modified my machine. I think it's the MK1. It's it's the first one from Native Instruments. I modified the Innovation launch control, and I modified my launch pad. So what I for example can do, I can just implement some percussion drums via the machine, and those stuff will run not into the Native Instruments sample library, but it's just controlling a drum rack inside of Ableton.
Okay, so you're using it just mostly in MIDI mode then,
yeah, everything. But I just have the track open into my template at the beginning, and if I want to have some snare rolls or other stuff. I can, turn on the knob, and then I have the ADSR on top with the rotaries, and I can scroll through the different presets, and I make them, my own. And that way, I feel that it's a bit more, not analog, but it's, you're working with hardware, and you're instead of working with the mouse, the most benefit about that is benefit the right word? Like a negative thing about working with the mouse is that you're watching to your screen, and the thing is, by watching to your screen is that you rely on your eyes instead of your ears. And by wiggling on a knob and touching or pressing a pad on a machine, or doing some other stuff with it, or playing the piano, then you're busy with that instrument, and you're not visually getting disordered by the screen, but just relying on what you hear through your speakers.
Yeah.
And that's, for me, a big achievement back then, when I hooked up all the devices and implemented it in my life, in my template. And it's also a really nerd kind of thing what I did by building my own control server scripts and achieving some stuff with Max for Live. And but a year ago, and I even didn't knew how to do it. And due to the fact that we are staying home, I was like, now it's time for Max for Live, and let's see what we can do then. And it's doing its job until now, and I'm super happy with the workflow now. Yeah,
no, totally. And speaking of Max for Live, you've made a couple of pretty interesting plugins. One of which I've been using for quite some time, which basically solved a massive problem that I had with Ableton, which was the whole thing of manipulating the warp engine and then being able to automate those kind of like grain envelopes on the sort of the 16th note kind of beat stutter kind of trick that a lot of people tend to do, which is interesting because it just, on the face of it, that effect just sounds like a gate, but there's something more to it because it's doing it on like the sample level, right? I think it's got a very different sound to it, actually. So the process of you like creating that plugin, I was so delighted when I first saw it, because I was like, finally someone solved my problem.
Me either. But that's the whole thing, you're talking about a problem, and it was my problem as well. So there you go again, from the problem to the solution via Max for Live. And I was so happy to make that device, especially because it's it's just a controlling device. It's not an audio device. It's not that I decided to make that curve in the transient. It's just controlling an Ableton function which wasn't controllable before. And I had a lot of good talks with the guys, and they told me like, well, it's not possible to control it because it's audio based, and we can then MIDI map it. And if it's not MIDI mappable, you can't control it. That's the rule basically inside of Ableton. If it's if you press the Shift Command M or Command M,
there's like a reason why it's not automatable.
And one of the reason why was because it's a too much how do you call it? Variation function. So that's one of the reasons why they can't. And then I thought, well, okay, but if you're on the point you decide to make use of it, then the function will pop up, but it's not controllable. So it was for me quite back then not that easy, but now it's quite easy to approach the control function of it. And the cool thing about Ableton, it's basically a big Excel Google sheet workflow what they did. So if you have, for example, your tracks, and you've for example 3 tracks, and on the third one you want to trigger something with Max for Life, what it does is that the first track of Ableton in Max for Life is 0. And also downwards. So, for example, 0,0 is the first clip you got.
Right, okay, got it.
And the third track is 2,0, because it's 0, 1, 2, so your third track, and then the first clip. And that opens the world for me, and I was like, okay, so if you can control that, you can do anything with it. And it works also with devices. So on your first track, your fourth or third device, well, okay, it's simple. Then it's your 0 track, and then your third device, then your second, because they're counting from 0. So it's everything is possible with Max for Life. And they build it so cool that it's visually. So it's C++ coding. And I mean, you don't have to ask me anything about that, because I literally don't know anything of it.
Just you wiring stuff up on a window somewhere, you know.
But you can just type LFO, and there's a whole script behind it, and it generates 2 outputs, one from left and one from the right side of the inlet, and it just LFOs.
So it's effectively like building your own like reactor ensemble or your own modular rig, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and they made an interface, like a visually interface, with some coding behind it, which we don't even have to know, because you just type in the function you want, and then it controls the it controls the whole script behind it. So it's literally visualizing. There's a name for it. It's called visualizing programming, or programming visualizing.
Yeah, we get what you mean. So are you completely self-taught then, where Max for Life is concerned?
Yeah. I followed some YouTube courses. There's one really cool one from 12 videos or something, and I thought to myself, okay, it's early morning, I'll sit down and then just follow the course. It was like 3 or 4 hours or something. Followed it, and just play with it. And at first, that's the cool part about the whole Max for Life thing, is you can open up other devices as well. So if you have a Max for Life plugin and you're really interested in that, but it misses some ways you wanted to approach it. I will say, for example, it's achieving some controllings on the first device, but you wanted to do it on the second device, but that's not possible. You can just open up the Max for Life plugin and search for your options, and it's already there, And at first I did that. Like, I wanted to, have the transient Max for Life plugin. And I opened a sort of similar plugin, but it was not like doing the job I wanted to do it. And I opened it up, and I was like, "Whoa, dude! All those wires!" And I was like, "Okay, fuck this. Going to make music again." But that's also a thing. If we come back to the whole live show and dive into, you have to do it yourself, and it's basically what I did with Max for Life. I just dove into it and then do it and sit for it and just make some stupid mistakes. And I think about one mistake I did. I made an infinite loop, and my computer was like, "You sure want to save this plugin?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." But I didn't know I made the infinite loop. And then I saved the plugin and I dragged it on the track, and my computer, it was like freezing out the hell out of it, because you're basically, what I told him is like, okay, send a number like, what is 1 + 1? and then he told me like it's 2, and then I told no, it's not 2. Okay, and then what is 1 plus 1? It's 2. No, it's not 2. Well, that kind of loop, and my computer was like, I can't handle this shit. And I did that for like 20 times. I lost some stuff as well, and so but you have to, don't be afraid to dive into it and see what's all possible, and especially search your problems and then fix it. And I think everyone who's like producing in Ableton or also in other programs, you also came across something that's like very disturbing, or like, why the heck is this not working, or why can't I control like one knob for 10 devices, for example. So what I attempt to do is I write down all those bits, and then if I have some time left, I think, oh, maybe I can fix this with Max for Live, and then after 2 hours, mostly I fixed it with Max for Live. And I now got some great talks with Ayera. He's a great producer on Innovations.
Incredible.
And he had a masterclass 2-3 weeks ago, and he was like, if there's someone in the audience who's building devices, hook up. And I was like, well, maybe this is a cool way to expand my nerdness. And let's see what we can do. So we're going to sit down shortly to make something cool. And he had some amazing ideas, but he didn't had the time yet to figure it out. He knew it is possible with Max for Live, but we're just going to hook up and see where it will go. And if we can then share the devices and put it online and make other people happy, I think that's also a cool thing now these days, this period to do.
No, totally. And that is the great power of it. I mean, I'm a very long-term Reactor user, and I've never built anything in Reactor, but I've definitely felt the benefit of other people creating something that solves a problem for them, which is also a problem that I have. And that's been a fantastic and really powerful thing over the years. I think Reactor, like Max for Live, I think there's a huge amount of like unnecessary fear around it. I think it is something that people can learn to an extent, but it's whether or not you actually need to learn it or not. I think a lot of people kind of think, well, I should learn Reactor or I should learn Max for Live, and it's like, well, why? Like, if you're not looking to solve a specific problem for yourself, that might be somebody else's problem, then maybe you don't need to, you don't need to put yourself under that kind of pressure, because I think it is for a certain kind of niche or a certain subset of people who think this way, who want to extend capability and extend functionality and stuff. And I think it's fantastic that you've got this kind of very open, very sort of, I suppose, democratic way of looking at it, where it's like, okay, well, we're going to build these things, but we're going to make them available for free or, for very low cost, and, be able to really push things forward. I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really awesome with all the abilities you could do. And last time I came across a video from Ableton with Arduino, and back when I was building the Holltesizer, the technical friend of mine was talking about, he built the LCD device with an Arduino, and I thought, well, maybe it's cool if Max for Live could talk to the Arduino and then wire up so the servo motors, you can buy them like super cheap, and what you can do is you can just place like a super mini drumstick, like a really light one. So I bought like 5 servos, and I can control them with Max for Live. And what I can do, I can just hook them up to a hi-hat or to my table, for example, and then I will just draw in the MIDI notes, and it will drum for me. the servo motors will basically drum for me. And I mean, I'm not the best drum player. I mean, I can play drums in real, but it's hard for me to do two things at the same time.
Your girlfriend told me, so don't worry.
And so
we'll edit that bit out if you want, if it's too much. Like,
and it's fun to experiment with that as well. And you have a cool company, I think in England, it's called Slate and Ash.
Yes. They do cycles and aura and stuff like that. Yeah.
Check their Instagram. It's so inspiring, and they also work with Max for Life and the Arduino, and I don't know what is called the device with the bells, it's like those steel. Oh man, you have this device when you was a child, like it's those steel kind of bars next to each other. I don't know the name of that device. Also not in Dutch.
I'm looking it up now.
Yeah.
There we go.
And what they're doing is they just implemented a lot of servos to that device.
Right, yeah.
And then they made a melody out of it.
Oh, yeah, like a xylophone or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, man.
So it's actually striking the instrument, yeah?
Yeah, it's insane. It's if you see all those options, it's really an eye-opener. Also, again, what you can do with software and hardware and Max for Life. And yeah, it's cool.
Very, very cool. Yeah, I'm a massive fan of Slate and Ash. Cycles completely changed my production workflow last year. It's one of the best things I've ever bought. Absolutely love the thing. The texture you can get out of that thing is just insane.
Yeah.
It really is. It really is. I mean, I've just recently kind of gone back to it, and it just blows me away every time I use it. And especially if you've got like an MPE compatible controller, the MIDI polyphonic expression, which of course is coming with the Live 11, which will probably be out by the time this podcast goes out. It's out next Tuesday, the 23rd of February. And I've been playing with the beta for a long time, and the MPE implementation is the best of any DAW as far as I'm concerned. It's made it really accessible, and you actually don't need to have like an MPE compatible device to use it. You can still use the automation lanes with a keyboard and mouse if you want to. But the Slate and Ash thing, I've got a Roly Seaboard block, and I've been a fan of Roly for a long time. Back when I was living in LA, they came to the studio that I was working in, and they did a whole demonstration, and just where they're going with the technology and what they're doing with that kind of like 5 dimensions of touch and all the data that's being derived from it is incredible. And the fact that you can link them up to like modular gear and stuff like that is just phenomenal. But to use the Seaboard with something like cycles and with auras in particular, Slate and Ash's other instrument, it's just next level, because you just feel like you can control the entire sound from your fingers. Yeah, they did a really good job, and the sounds in it are so deep, bright, and inspiring. But if you walk through their Instagram feed, I was so hooked up to the sounds they made. And in the cycle function, you also have the basic function, and it just plays the sound, right? Yeah, it just plays the loop, and that's it. Yeah, and even those sounds are well made. They are so incredible, and that was the reason why I was like searching them up on Instagram. It's like, how did they even do this? But you see that they spend a lot of time, effort, money, innovation, and experimentation on making their sounds. And I thought and then I saw the servos and was like, dude, I want to try this out. But that's the interesting thing. It's like, I've had an incredible time using cycles and putting my own samples through it, and like you know, creating something like with. I've been doing this a lot recently. I've probably given Spitfire Audio more of my money than any other company in the last year on like string libraries. Like I'm addicted to like the Oliver Arnold stuff because it's great for film music as well as for like music, dance music and stuff as well. But you know, just taking like you play a few chords in from like the Oliver Arnold thing, and then you dump it into cycles, and then within 5-10 seconds, man, you're in like a completely different like funny enough when we were talking about jamming before, cycles feels like that to me when I'm working with it. It's just absolutely just mind-blowing. And I just want to point out this podcast is not sponsored by Slate and Ash, although I may well send this to them afterwards and then see what they can do.
Send my invoice as well.
We'll have 2 NFRs. Thank you very much.
No, man. I mean, I bought the plugin last year and I had a good conversation with a friend of mine, and I was like, "Oh, should I buy it?" He was like, "Dude, I'm not going to convince you to buy it because you will buy it in the end." I mean,
we always do. We always put ourselves through that
mate.
hell, right? And then we end up. Do you know what I mean? It's
And he was like, "Did you buy it?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, I did it." And he was like, "Okay, I will come to the studio with another friend." So we were like with the 3 of us. I dimmed the lights, and I just pressed one button on the keyboard, and we were like sitting here for, I think 20-25 minutes. Almost with our eyes closed, like, "Oh, dude, what the heck? This is
right.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's, mate, they're so well made." And I'm seeing some other stuff from the guys as well now on their feed on Instagram, and I love the interface. It's so cool and it's so simple. It's simple. It's simply made, but it's also very attractive to. Not have like a pop meter or a literally encoder going from left to right, but it's just a small dot which is going become bigger or smaller, and with the squares, it's
one of my great regrets last year that the last masterclass I did before everything shut down. I did an event here called the Electronic Sound Summit in Liverpool, and it's really, really frustrating because this is an example of like things out of your control going wrong. So I did this masterclass. I invited a friend of mine. She's an incredible vocalist, and she sung a load of lines at the beginning of the masterclass. Then we recorded it into Ableton live in front of the crowd. And then I basically took loops from her voice and dumped them into cycles live. But then to add another layer on top of it, I think I've told you about these guys before. Like, they're a company in Iceland called Genki Instruments, and they make this thing. It's called a wave ring. And it's like a ring that you wear.
Yeah, you showed it to me, yeah.
Yeah. So I had the wave ring on stage, but I was mapping like the various gestures, like, the lifting of the palm and downwards and twisting the hand and stuff. I had that set to different parameters in cycles. And
cool.
It was one of those moments, like, and again, like, the video's been kind of lost to the ether because the sound engineer at the venue kind of fucked up the audio recording, so we didn't have good audio. So the video looked great. We had it all in 4K, and the audio was so bad that we couldn't put it out. It was so annoying. Like, I hate it when that shit happens. And it was one of those funny moments. Like, I wish you could see the video because like there was quite a few people there, and the people just sort of sat there going, "What the fuck is this guy doing?"
Yeah.
Like, this is not what I expected. Like, and it was almost like I didn't know how to react because there was like this stunned silence, and like people come up to me at the end going, I think most people are just a bit in shock. of like what they've just seen, because it's just so way out from where most people are thinking.
Yeah.
You know, and that's going to be the interesting future, right? Is taking those types of instruments and like what you're doing with Max for Live and mapping them to various controllers, or having something really intuitive like these. Because and the great thing about the Genki Wavering, it's $200.
Yeah.
Like, they're not expensive. They're not like these big, incredibly expensive like prototype things. Like this type of thing, this wearable tech and stuff like that, is going to be part of the future. Because I've had so much fun. I've had so much fun with it. Just even wearing it in the studio and just having it like, you know, just doing that to be able to play Ableton and that to stop it. And there's like 3 different buttons on there. And, you know, you can do like you can actually turn a regular MIDI instrument into like almost like an MPE. Because you can actually add in like the vibrato because it's picking it up through the ring. So there's just, again, like we keep saying, we keep discovering things, but then it opens out like another 100 times more kind of possibilities. Like,
yeah, and you see it also more often now on Kickstarter, right? I mean, you got like the drumsticks, hand gloves, rings, and I've went to the Whistleord Studios in Hilversum with on invitation of Ableton. You know the Imogen Heap.
Yes, the Mimu gloves,
the gloves, and one of the gloves, she was another girl, I forgot her name, but she brought the glove from Imogen Heap herself, and because she developed Imogen Heap, she developed the device itself.
That's right,
the company and the whole story behind that, it's insane. You can watch it on YouTube as well. It's really cool. But she also implemented again visuals with it, and she was like dancing, and then on a small beamer, normally that's a big screen, they showed her movements and with the sound, and then dude, it was so cool to see. And after that, it was already a couple of years ago, but after that I wanted to do a same kind of thing, so I got a lot of friends, but another friend of mine he built applications for iPhones, and there's of course also an
accelerometer
in the iPhone and in other devices, and I thought, well, maybe we can do something cool on that. So we spent the night over here in the studio, and I made the design, and he was like coding all the stuff, and he was like, try this out. And I tried it out on Frugte with a filter, and I still behind in the studio like wiggling my iPhone. Like, nice, this is working.
Well, dude, I was doing that kind of stuff there's a few things I'll follow up with you on that about the Imogen Heap thing as well, but I was doing that in like 2006 with you know, the Nintendo Wii remote.
Oh yeah, you told me.
Yeah. So you could because they actually kick out OSC. Like, that's what their control language is. Like, that's what the information is from the accelerometer. So I was using an app called Osculator.
Yeah.
And that is a converter from OSC to MIDI.
Yeah.
So you could then have it as being various different MIDI CC messages, that kind of thing. You can map it, and then it was just so cool because you could basically just get the Wii remote and all the buttons and the trigger and the accelerometer, and even like you could do the roll and the yaw and all that stuff. You could actually map all of that as MIDI CC messages. So like, it was just cool. So crazy. But to think that I was like where we're at now, and I was doing that in like 2006 in like audio engineering college, is insane. Like, it really is. And I think there's there's a little bit of setup involved. Like with the Genki, what I find is that you kind of have to smooth things out a little bit and get it used to how you position your hand, so to speak. But you were talking about the iPhone there as well, and the accelerometer on there. I had a really interesting conversation last year with Bjork's technical manager, because she really loves D&B Soundscape, like the systems that I've helped I've worked with for a couple of years. And he came to, we had it wasn't even an event, it was just more like a day because this is what, like, we're about to tell this story basically about D&B, which is exciting because I've recently had a meeting with Robert Henke, the inventor of Ableton, because he's into soundscape as well. So we're actually going to have, like, in the next few weeks, a roundtable discussion on a live stream between me,
really cool.
Camille Darman.
Yeah,
Camille's been involved in it as well. Michael, really cool, the category manager from D&B, and then Robert. And Bjork loved soundscape for a while, but he saw what I was doing with, like, the Genki wavering, because of course I mapped it to D&B soundscape. Because I can then just, like, move my hand in the air and move, like, an instrument around the room. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, and he actually said to me, "Oh, that's really interesting that you've got that wavering," because obviously she's from Iceland and she knows the guys at Genki and stuff. But Bjork's technical manager said they developed something where they've got a control script for an Apple Watch to do the same thing, because that also has accelerometers in it because of altitude and movement and stuff as well. So it's entirely possible to do that kind of thing now on an Apple Watch as well, which is super cool. Yeah. So I want to play around with that at some stage as well. That'd be incredible. So we're at this really weird, really interesting point where all of these things are coming together, like controllers, physical stuff, wearable tech, visuals, immersive audio, virtual reality. You think when all these things start to collide, it's just going to be absolutely insane what people are going to be able to create.
And I think for the output and for the commercial or consumer market, I think, of course, these times are a bit weird, but it also opens up a lot on that front to promoters and to DJs and live producers, live musicians. I think this period has given that front a boost for maybe 3 or 4 years in front. I mean, if the whole situation was not here, we could talk about maybe over 10 years, but I think it will be here over maybe 2 or 3, because all those people now had to force to work together, and I think that it's, again, super interesting to see where we're going to with all those innovations and tech nerd stuff. And make it more accessible for the rest.
Exactly. And then also as well, it's going to open out new revenue streams for the artist as well. As long as it's really well structured, because, like, we've got a podcast coming up with a guy called Bjorn, who runs a platform called Rocky, and here at NYT, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get into that point of what we were saying about immersive audio, next generation stuff, VR, or everything we've just talked about, but add the dimension of, okay, we can build proper revenue streams for ourselves as artists as well and have complete control over it. And that's going to add up to things like, say, for example, this platform Rocky that he's built, Bjorn, where it's basically like a crypto-backed music streaming service. So that's going to open out, as well as, like, the live streams and everything else. Bandcamp obviously has been huge in the last year, and there's more and more artists going to it and taking more direct control over their music and over their masters and stuff like that, which I think is incredibly positive. And I think people are now searching for more sustainable ways of earning a living from their music that doesn't necessarily mean having to go out on tour when a lot of the time they might not want to, So, like, the just to think of, like, where we're going to be in 2 years from now is just going to be absolutely crazy. It's
it has to, it have to. I mean, there's so much happening right now, and it's really cool to see the process of where it's going to. It's really insane. And we also have these we together have always these great conversations.
I'm just glad we recorded one this time.
Oh, finally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're the worst. Like you're one of those people when you drop me a line and you say, "Hey, have you got 5 minutes on a Zoom call or on Skype?" It's like I cancel everything for the rest of the afternoon because I know where it's going, and it's
Right?
like the only thing missing's beer.
That's the one thing, right? That's the one thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Although it's a little early for me because it's like 11:20 in the morning here. There's been an early start
Well,
for me.
yeah, nothing too early for you, mate.
Well,
Nothing too
no,
early.
exactly. Well, as they say, it's beer o'clock somewhere.
Oh, mate, I had so much fun last time I was watching one of your streams on MYT, and you were like sipping the wine.
Oh
I was
yeah,
like,
totally.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
it's like, mate, I don't give a shit. It's like we're all grown ups.
Yeah,
It's totally fine. It's like, yeah, exactly. I mean, it got to a point where it became like a little bit of an internal meme within the membership because it was like,
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
I saw something.
Yeah. It was like because I think I filled my glass up so much, so full one night. It was like it had like surface tension. To like, when you have to like kind of do this and you have to kind of like
Sip it.
Yeah, sip it without lifting it. It was that kind of thing, and
I was watching a stream I think 2 months ago with Joris Voorn, Speedy J, Reinier Sonneveld, and someone else. But Reinier, he was sitting in his living room, and they were like streaming, and Speedy was like holding the conversation. And it was so funny. And he had his laptop in front of him, but behind his laptop was his living room, but no one knows that because he's, the laptop was just facing towards him, and there was like still a living room behind him. But he put away his wine next to his laptop.
Oh no!
And no, it was not like falling. It was not
okay,
like falling.
okay.
No. This is way funnier. But every time he took a sip again, the wine glass became fuller. And after they had like a 2-hour conversation,
Love
and I
it.
mean after like 70 or 80 minutes, Joris Voorn, he was also it was like making this comment like, dude, your wine glass is becoming fuller every time you take a sip. Oh man, it was so funny.
So
Because,
is the J in Speedy J? Does that stand for Jesus?
I don't know.
Because
I don't
the
know.
wine keeps filling up, keeps turning the water into wine. Speedy Jesus is now what I'm going to call him from now on.
No, but it was Reinier's glass, and I think it's just his roommate or someone else was like,
Oh,
they
right,
had the
okay.
joke about like filling it up every time.
Brilliant, love it, absolutely love it. So funny.
Yeah.
I love stuff like that, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like that's kind of what we try and do. We try and do it in a really like relaxed way. It's let's not take it too seriously. Like we're supposed to be having fun.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be learning. I think you can do both at the same time, and enjoy
really.
each other's company as well. Like we're about to kind of like shift our offering a little bit because we're gonna spend even more time together. Because like it's always, you've probably seen this if you watch like any of the track feedback calls we do. It's just a good time. It's just sitting for an evening, drinking some wine, listening to everyone's tracks, giving feedback, and it's amazing. And then you see those tracks go out. Like we've had like 2 members this week have staff pick features on Beatport.
Yeah, I saw your post. Amazing.
Yeah, which is great,
That's
and,
cool.
and they fully deserve it because they're really great guys, and they're a high level bunch who really know what they want, and it's incredibly exciting watching them all develop.
Yeah, right. And it's the community and all those chats online, and giving each other feedback and helping each other. It's the best way, and you can't do this on your own. And I've what I said like 30 minutes ago about the conversation I had with Tom, but about the analog gear. But it's, for me, a studio session is not only making music and having fun, but also to have some great conversations, to keep the mind healthy, but also, especially during these times, we normally we had those conversations backstage, or we had those conversations somewhere in the hallways of a club or on a festival outside. And I think the value of having the opportunity to talk with each other is massively grown in the past year. And I'm a member of the AAA, and I see sometimes some cool stuff passing by, and I'm just happy to see that there's that there are healthy talks, and that there are people who help each other, and I think that's that's the best, and that keeps you motivated, and that's so cool, because you need each other. You really need each other in this world.
Yeah, totally. I mean, in general, never mind the last year, and it's great because it shows that the community, the people who are similar, kind of get attracted, right? And like, I've got 2 rules where MYT is concerned, and I mean this entirely. It's like, one, just be light and polite. And number 2 is basically don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Like, it could not be simpler. And I'll be honest with you, I feel about it so passionately. If I felt like, somebody had signed up and and they didn't fit in, I'd probably just say, hey, sorry, this probably isn't for you, or, politely, you're being a dick.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think it's really important to have that, You are?
Yeah. Yeah, just don't be a dick.
Yeah, just stop being a dick. Simple. Simple. It's like my 3 rules of making it in the music world is make a good coffee or tea, don't be a dick, and don't be shit.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And there are deeper things to it, but it really, those 3 things are that simple. Don't do things that make you shit.
Yeah. Well, and in the end, it will, if your heart is on the right place in this, in your field, and then it will be. It will be. You will be there, or you'll become what you want, and especially in the last 3 years, I literally don't see a lot of bad people around me, or it's at a certain point you not can smell them. But
I'm not
you
going
know what
there.
I mean, right?
I'm not going there.
But you get a sense for you get a sense for it, and if I'm on more Facebook groups or Instagram stuff, and I just made some decisions a while ago by deleting some of them because they didn't make me happy, or they didn't add value to my positive process of my mind. And I think if you're a bit of critic to yourself, okay, I'm putting my time into this group or this group and with this kind of people, you don't need a lot, but if you can surround yourself with some nice people, then or some nice groups, then I think it's so much easier to become not a dick. Yeah, right.
And also fulfill your potential. It's like the whole thing with us is that we're trying to help people become the best artist they can be, and you can't do that without being the best version of yourself. I've said it for a long time that artist development and personal development are the same thing.
Yeah, and it's hard, right? It's not hard to not be a dick, but the thing is about that is that it's hard to open up yourself, and the thing is with music, it's so it can the thing why people maybe become a dick is that the fact that they have to open up, and to show, you have to show who you really are, and that's sometimes a hard job, man. To really open up and to really say, okay, this is me, and you cannot always put out the best thing, but stand behind the product, stand behind yourself, and it's we can have these talks about 4 or 5
Oh yeah,
hours.
exactly. I mean, we can really keep going. I mean, for me, just to close on that subject, I think when I've been a dick in the past, I mean, it's hard to believe that I've been a dick, right? Yeah, whatever. I've had more than my fair share of moments, and probably plenty to come as well. Like, let's be honest. But when I'm being a dick, like, it's normally because I'm scared.
Yeah, but that's it, and for me the same. I mean,
that explains everything.
Well, I'm pressing the red button on Skype. See you soon.
So that podcast was brought to you in association with. Well, there you go. Yeah, dude, we've been going 2 hours, man. So I think we need to bring this to an end.
Awesome. Yeah. 2 hours.
2 hours, dude. Again, another one of our long and amazing conversations.
Yeah. We just need to record everything now, what's coming, if we have a conversation. And then...
Yeah, just in case, right?
We will see.
Indeed.
I mean...
Like a modular synth with no presets.
Yeah, right?
It's a great metaphor for our conversations. It's a moment in time. You have to hit record.
Let me take a picture, otherwise I won't save the preset now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to send you the preset in the mail.
Okay, cool.
So then, by the time this goes out, Hollt from the studio to the stage will be out on MYT, on the course platform. So you'll be able to find that on the website, www.transition.studio. Was there enough W's in that web address there? And I mean, just give us a final overview of what's included in the course, mate, before we finish off.
Yeah, so what I did in the course, I made a track, and I translate this one to a live track, and I filmed every angle from the studio to make sure you guys won't miss out anything. And that's the basic thing of the course, and I go in depth with all the steps I do when making a track, and by transforming it to the live track. So I think it's very interesting to see, also for myself, to grab back on the process, and very curious to all there who are going to watch the course, to all your thoughts, and also implemented some cool Max for Live devices I built. So yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yes, mate. It's packed full of value, and like you say, the way that you've filmed it from like the various camera angles is incredible. I think it's just an incredibly high level thing that you've done, and I think it just speaks to you as an artist and as a human being as well. Like, when you go out and do something, you do it properly. So it's an honor to have you be part of the family, and an honor to have you as part of MYT, mate.
Thanks, mate. Same.
Cool. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Beyond the Studio, so we shall see you soon. Catch new episodes of Beyond the Studio every single week on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy your podcasts.